Thank you all for being here today. I want to specifically thank the members of the Santa Clara PAC who have spent days putting this process together. The PAC endorsed 2 years ago. Fortunately, all the candidates they endorsed won. The purpose of our PAC is to support candidates that we feel best represents the values of many businesses in the better Santa Clara area. These values include seeking individuals from different backgrounds and ethnicities. Last year, we approached the Hispanic, Black, and Vietnamese chambers looking for possible candidates. We did not get the interest we'd hoped, and we're not able to find candidates interested in serving the city through an elected position. From this experience, we decided we wanted to add an educational portion to our endorsements. We felt by streaming the interviews, we'd be able to educate and interest future candidates for council position. The difficult times the city is facing has become even more important to have individuals with business backgrounds to help make the right short and long-term decisions. For the candidates that we will interview today, it's not intended to make the process difficult. Rather, we're hoping to help make you aware of the problems and issues that face the city, specifically that affect business. Not all candidates decided to be interviewed through this process. To those that did not, we wish you well. If you do receive our endorsement, it is because we best feel that you represent the many businesses of Santa Clara. For you that do not receive the endorsement, we want you to know that we appreciate your efforts and applaud the fact that you're involved. If you're elected, endorsed or not, we look forward to working with you. It's important to note the long history of the city and business in Santa Clara, one of mutual respect and an ability to find common goals that benefit all the citizens of Santa Clara. We are relatively new to endorsing candidates and want the process to be transparent. We want to provide the voters with as much information about the process and the decision we have made. I wish to congratulate all of you on your choice to involve yourself with the City of Santa Clara, a decision you'll never regret. So let's begin. Our next candidate is Teresa O'Neill. She's running for seat 7 in Santa Clara, and we will turn it over to you, Teresa.
Thank you very much, Dave. Good day, my fellow Santa Clarans. As Dave said, my name is Teresa O'Neill, and I am a candidate for Council Seat 7. I am running for this seat because I have a lifelong love of Santa Clara. I've lived here in the Valley all of my life. I was baptized at St. Clair's Church, born at San Jose Hospital. So when I'm in meetings with my Silicon Valley colleagues, I'm usually the only person who is actually born and raised here. But I also feel that I'm bringing experience. I have experience in government. I was a member of the Santa Clara School Board for 8 years, elected twice by this community. I have been on our Santa Clara Planning Commission for 5.5 years. And in the nonprofit sector, I have been on directors on many nonprofit boards in the education, arts, health fields. And also, I have been in business at Hewlett-Packard for 30 years, where I was privileged to see the very, very best in management, and also have experienced management that was not nearly as visionary. And I have learned a great deal from both of those experiences. So I'm offering my candidacy to the people of Santa Clara, and I have 4 main areas that I am speaking to you about, and I'm sure you're hearing some of the same things from other candidates. But number 1, the first thing we have to do is strengthen our city finances. If we don't have our fiscal house in order, we can't go forward. It's like any house that you build, if you don't have a firm foundation, when the first storm comes by, the house washes away. I believe in building stronger partnerships in the city. I've seen how that can be very effective. The city has partnered very effectively in the past with the school district, and there can be partnerships with other regional governmental entities, as well as some of the agencies that can provide some of the services that the city is not currently in the position to provide itself, or maybe it's not the best idea that the city provide those services. We certainly need to have more partnerships with our business community and to make it easier for the business community to thrive in Santa Clara, thus employing more people in the community. And when they're more successful, they're paying more revenues into our revenue stream through taxes, and everybody will benefit. My third priority is to promote better government. Mr. Topkin mentioned about the outreach to some of our ethnic chambers of commerce. I do want to see our government more clearly reflect the wonderful diversity that we now have in Santa Clara. We are a city that no longer has a majority of any one ethnic group, and I think that I've learned from some of the business leaders that I've been inspired by, that oftentimes diversity brings a spark of creativity. And so I would like to see that also in our city government. And I think that we can do more outreach. Perhaps one of the thoughts I had is through our school communities, where oftentimes parents are there, and that's for the first place where they get involved in the community, is being on a school site council or the parent-teacher organization, and start getting them ready to grow in their leadership capabilities. I also think that we can do some things with having a more interactive form of commentary through through our website and through other kinds of using different types of media, so that I can't tell you how many times on the Planning Commission people at the last minute come in and will say, I have never heard of this project. I had no idea that this was going on. If I knew, I could have provided input. I could have helped shape that process. So I think that there are things that we can do in that area to really make use of the technology that we now have at our fingertips, as is witnessed by the use of these video streams today. The other thing that is very important to me is growing strong and healthy neighborhoods. When I was on the school board, two of the things that I'm most proudest of when I was on the school board was that I led the initiative to have strong wellness programs in the community, and we looked at, and it was very controversial. We had the New York Times, we had NPR, we had the Wall Street Journal looking at what we were doing in terms of trying to increase wellness amongst our employees, amongst our students, by looking at what we were all eating, by looking at how we were raising money. And so much emphasis in the schools had gone to selling less than optimal or less than nutritious foods to raise money, the much needed money for the school. So we brought in a whole different program with that. And so I really believe that part of being able to be more effective as a community is that making sure that we have a very healthy workforce, a workforce that's not going to require nearly as much medical care. When you look at 17% of our gross domestic product is now spent on healthcare in this country, that puts us at an economic disadvantage with other parts of the world. One of the other things that I started when I was on the school board, I came up with the idea for using some surplus land at the Peterson Middle School to start an educational, sustainable organic farm, which is now known as Full Circle Farm. And I'm very pleased and proud when I go there and I see that now it's the first new orchard that's been planted in this beautiful valley for 50 years, and for the first time this year, fruits from the trees that we've been planting are sold in the farm stand. It's a place where the community can gather, get some exercise, just like our grandparents used to do, actually work in the garden instead of worrying about having to get to a gym. And students come and participate in hands-on science programs and learn a lot more about biology. They see it, it becomes very real. And so I would like to see an extension of those kinds of programs. How can we encourage healthy practices in our community? As I said, I think it makes for a happier community and a community that is better prepared to serve in our workforce and just to have a higher quality of life. I think those kinds of communities that have things like that are more attractive to companies that we would want to have in Santa Clara. And as we work on developing other things in Santa Clara, to have a higher quality of life in terms of some of the amenities. Where I work in Cupertino, I'm constantly circled by the buses that come down from San Francisco and from Santa Cruz and way out in the East Bay to bring their workers to Cupertino. I know that Google, I was told by a member of the Google legal department that 5,000 employees a day come on buses from San Francisco to work in Mountain View and Sunnyvale, because a lot of the younger high-tech workers are not interested in living in our suburban cities. So I think we really need to look at that and see how can we make our communities attractive to the next generations of workers and those companies that will employ them. And so one of the thoughts that I've had about that is to really look at how can we create new urban villages in the proposed Santa Clara Station Area Plan, and looking at the Lawrence Area Station Plan, as well as what can we do to create the north of Bayshore area into more of the true downtown of Santa Clara by bringing in some high-rise housing in appropriate areas, so that you create a climate when the stadium is built, when the hotels start to be built, that there's a natural vitality, because this is where people live. This is where they experience life, and that makes it more attractive to visitors rather than just having people that are coming in for conventions or a football game on the weekend. So in summary, I hope that you will consider seriously my ideas, my dedication to the city of Santa Clara, my concern for my 4 areas of priorities being, strengthen our finances, make this a better place to do business, have a more open government, and to really foster stronger neighborhoods in a variety of ways that will not cost the city a lot of money. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Teresa. And we're going to start with Brendan.
Teresa, good to have you here today, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us to start out. I've got 3 questions for you today. Let's start with, in reading your stuff, you've got a lot of ideas that seem to go toward being inclusive, bringing groups together, such as linking the churches up with clubs and whatnot. How do you think we can best engage the community in this process of government and bring business in? So how do we link up business, government, and the community together?
Well, I think you have to do that at a very grassroots level. And I mentioned like through the churches, through the school communities, where perhaps, say the more diverse communities or the communities of color, that may be the first place where they're making a connection. And you mentioned some of the chambers of commerce, maybe perhaps doing more outreach there. I know that I've spoken to some of the business owners, and many of them don't live in Santa Clara. So one of the things I think also that we have to do is to make sure that one of the things that they're very concerned about is the quality of the school system and the education that their children will receive and the impact that that has on residential property values. So I think by making sure that we work with the schools and work with the parents in those schools, making sure, like I said, I think the first place that they get engaged is at the school sites, and seeing if we can almost use those facilities more. One of the wonderful things about Santa Clara is the relationship between the Unified School District and the city of Santa Clara. When I was on the school board, I wrote an award application to the statewide California School Boards Association for what they call the Golden Bell Award. And the premise was about the school-city partnership, and that this was unique in what I had experienced in my dealings with cities and school districts around the state when I was a school board member. And we won one of the awards, and the deputy executive director of that organization said that one of the main reasons they selected my award proposal was that they wanted to encourage other communities to develop those kinds of partnerships that had happened over generations in Santa Clara. So I think that there are ways that we can use those school sites to be even more community centers than they are now, and that might be a way through the schools for the businesses to connect and to, like I said, start bringing up those next generation of leaders in the city of Santa Clara. Did I cover it all?
That was good. And just one quick thing. How do you think you differ most from your other candidates, John and Bill?
I think the fact that I have a lot more experience in actually participating in the community. As I mentioned, I was an elected member of the school board for 8 years. I've been on the planning commission, so I've seen how the government works at the school district level. I've had to make very difficult decisions on budgeting. I've had to participate in decisions about laying off hundreds of employees, which, let me tell you, is a very gut-wrenching thing to do when you know those people and you know the impact that it will have on their lives. I've been involved in the Planning Commission. I've seen how land use is one of the most important facets of a community's life. Seeing how projects are developed. I've experienced and heard from applicants some of their frustrations with the city of Santa Clara, which I think generally has a good process, but there are things that we can do to better set expectations, to make it clearer, and to, I've talked about having like a one-stop shopping center for new businesses so that they can get all the needs they've met. Not just the permit center is a great start, but to expand that concept. So I think the fact that I have been on committees for the city, been on the commissions, been on the school board, been involved at the county and the state level in political work, lobbying legislatures to get changes made that will benefit the city of Santa Clara, I think that that gives me a head start over my opponents. We all have business experience, which is wonderful. So I think that what differentiates me is my level of my community and government experience.
Lou Mariano, you have a question?
Thank you for coming this afternoon.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed reading the questionnaire. You speak about locations where more housing could be put in, and you specifically mentioned the Santa Clara Station Plan area and the Lawrence Station Plan area. Now, if it made economic sense and it density was appropriate and it interfaced with the neighborhoods appropriately, would higher density than the general plan is currently saying make sense for those areas?
It very well could be, because those are areas that are somewhat, you know, have a buffer, more of a buffer from the existing residential neighborhoods. Some of the challenges that we're having right now along the El Camino is that we want to make that a more vibrant corridor for our community, but a lot of those lots are not very deep and they back right up in many cases to single-family homes. And on the Planning Commission, that's one of the biggest challenges we've had, is to try to design those buildings so that they will have the least amount of impact, negative impact, on the homes behind them. So I would prefer to see, like in those areas that we've designated, the station area plans, I think that you could really make some attractive villages where, like at one point on the station area plan, there was talk of including a museum. I think we could include a lot of amenities there. It's right, would be, you know, hopefully BART will ultimately come to the Santa Clara station. It will be an incredible transit hub. So I think there's the possibility to build thousands of housing units in that area.
Thank you, Lou. Dave Delosier, are you there?
I'm here.
Do you have questions for Teresa?
I have a couple of questions. Teresa, thank you for being involved.
Thank you.
And one is a land use issue, and you talk about housing in our entertainment district, and I guess I look at some issues about being able to provide normal residential services in an area that's primarily for business and entertainment. And also, how do you get away from the, you know what, I built here and I knew that there was a stadium, but I don't like the noise and the traffic and the lights, so get rid of the stadium because I live here now.
Well, I went through some of that when I was on the school board, and we refurbished the football field at Santa Clara High School, and part of the plan was to put lights on that field, and we got a lot of complaints from the neighbors who came and gave it takes a village speech to raise our children. I thought, well, I said, it takes a village to raise the kids at Santa Clara High too. And so we worked through a lot of those issues, and we pointed out, I was going to high school on that campus when all that housing was built. Prior to that, it was orchards, and so the school was there first. And once again, as you said, people moved in knowing that something is there. What I'm thinking about for housing for the north of Bayshore area would be probably, like, I guess to the west of Great America Parkway. We're going to have a lot of office towers. There's a project, quite a large project that's planned for I think it was just changed ownership at the Bowers Augustine 101 area. And when they first came to the Planning Commission a few years ago, I said, you know, maybe we could put luxury condos on the first or the top 5 floors or something like that. I think when you look at Mission College, the fact that it's going to be an entertainment area, some of the other land use out there, and I'm not sure what is going to end up happening with the Yahoo property based just on their financial status, that we could build in some more creative and imaginative ways for those amenities. I would say that if you've got a built-in base of people that are living there, they are going to be there shopping in new stores, they're going to be eating in restaurants, and they're going to be going to the entertainment venues just as much as visitors. I think that provides a more sustainable model for the kinds of activities that we want to see out there. And I think we can do it in a way that won't impinge. I've voted on the Planning Commission several times to maintain the integrity as it was currently zoned. I was on the General Plan Steering Committee, and we did, as you were, Dave, and I talked about let's concentrate the industrial a little closer to the airport, and that would give us a little bit more flexibility to put housing, perhaps some housing, and we have to look at it very closely, along, like I said, primarily to the west of Great America Parkway. One of the other issues that we have is tremendous traffic backup on that the north-south corridors. when you look at most of the mass transit that we're talking about, it's going in a different direction. And even with the bus rapid transit, we have an issue of north-south connectivity. So one of my thoughts is, if we created an appropriate environment out there, that a lot of people wouldn't be, we wouldn't see those level of service F, which means the, very clogged intersections all along Lawrence Expressway, Bowers Avenue, Santa Moss, Scott, all of those, that we could help alleviate some of that traffic by, by cutting down on the numbers of people that have to commute out there to the north side.
The other question I have has to do with your role as a city council person. I'm proud of the fact that the school district and the city have a lot of different partnerships and a lot of different issues. Mm-hmm. But define how you feel your role is going to be different from a school board member versus a city council member.
Well, some of the objectives are very different. And with a school district, you have a very defined objective of helping your entire community in their education path, whether it's from preschool through all the grade school years into the adult school. With the city of Santa Clara, it's a slightly different population base, and you also need to take into consideration the majority of people in the city of Santa Clara who do not have a student in the school district. So you need to be looking at their needs. And one of the things increasingly that we're going to need to look at is the needs of the senior population. When people say to me, "Why are you promoting growth? Why are you?" I said, guys, I'm not promoting growth. We're growing in part because our population is living to a longer age. I can name like a half a dozen of my neighbors within a couple of blocks that are over the age of 90 that are still living in their homes. And so we're going to have a different type of housing. We're going to have more programs to address the needs of a population that will live longer. I recently I was in some pre-retirement planning through my company, and the company, Fidelity, that assists us, they have raised the numbers once again. They said for men, you need to have enough money to retire to live to 90. For women, it's 94. And if you are in a couple, that you have to have enough money to live to 97, because there's a statistically significant chance that one of that couple will live to age 97. So that's one of the things that the city needs to be looking at. How are we going to be preparing for having a much larger percentage of our population in the more elderly end of the spectrum? The city also has a lot more purview over land use, regional transportation, just preserving the infrastructure that has made Santa Clara the great success that it is, including our utilities, electrical, water, our waste disposal plant ownership, the fiber optic infrastructure that exists in this city, those kinds of things. It's a lot of times the city has to lay the groundwork on which, as I said, it's a different kind of foundation from the financial, but it's just as much of a foundation upon which everything else is going to thrive.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, Miles Barber, please.
Teresa, thank you for participating today.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here. We hear a lot today about the financial conditions of our cities, and there's a lot of ideas being proposed for resolving some of those financial issues. You've given some indication in your responses on the questionnaire of ways in which we can almost grow our way out of some of our financial problems by attracting new business to Santa Clara. And can you elaborate a little bit on what you see that particular regarding that particular item, and how the chamber might fit into assisting the attraction of new business to Santa Clara?
Thank you. Well, one thing, as I mentioned, is making sure that we continue to improve the infrastructure. I have spoken to some people that do business in Santa Clara. Someone I know that is a highly placed manager at one of the largest employers in the city of Santa Clara. And they love that. They, obviously that's a huge attraction. And maintaining that, making sure that, that they can rely on a steady source of electricity at reasonable rates, that they get good services when they want to call City Hall, or when they call an office in City Hall, that they know that they're going to get a reply. And I think including that's one of the things that's brought like a lot of data centers in the last few years to the city of Santa Clara, is the availability of good, clean, inexpensive power. I think some of the other things that we can do is, once again, hearkening back to the education theme, is I know a lot of cities have talked about incubators. Maybe we could look at that and as a combination of our chamber and with the resources that we have at Santa Clara University. I know Dr. Laurel Jones at Mission College is very interested in trying to develop programs where we can have a stronger workforce that will meet the needs of the businesses that are coming to Santa Clara. If you're not an electrical engineer, but if we want to have some really good paying manufacturing jobs again, which we still have, but to have more of them, the manufacturing is more of a very technical nature. And so you need a workforce that is more highly trained. I think also I've been told by members that work in the construction business that sometimes they have a hard time getting, this was some years ago, but anyway, it was kind of a facetious remark, but finding employees that could pound a nail straight. Well, we all know most of that's done pneumatically now, but the point being that we can even look at, and one of the things that Santa Clara Unified has done pretty well is had good career to school to career education programs. We are working in partnership with the building trades, with our companies. How can we be educating more of those kids to be ready to go into those companies, so that we can say we have a ready workforce that you can come and hire, and you're not going to have to bring people from other parts of the country or the world to work here, because we have people here in Santa Clara that can do that for you.
Good, thank you.
The next question will come from Myron Von Ratio.
Teresa, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. I have a question, kind of following up a little bit on what Miles was talking about, and it's talked about revenues, and cities and counties all across the state are having significant problems. And as you know, back in 1978, we passed Prop 13, which keeps property taxes low for both residents and businesses. And of late, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of pressure to look at businesses as a way of saying, hey, maybe because corporations are living longer than people or whatnot, whatever the different arguments are, that perhaps we should go to a two-tier type tax system where the businesses are taxed at a different rate. Where do you stand on that, and what do you see about that? Yeah,
that is kind of a difficult issue. And one of the pieces of information, as you mentioned, since 1978 with the passage of Proposition 13, I believe, and these numbers are approximate, that in 1978, 1/3 of the total property taxes were collected from residences, private residences, and 2/3 were from commercial or business properties, and I believe it is now flipped. And it is a fact of life. Like the piece of property where I work, it was held in the same hands for about 50 years and just recently changed hands. So you frequently, because of the leasing structure and things like that, those properties don't turn over. And just as sometimes I feel a little funny in my neighborhood because I've lived there, owned my home longer than my neighbors, I'm paying a lot larger, or they're paying much more in property taxes than I am paying. So that is an issue. I think that, I would say maybe as a state, because that I believe should be a state issue. Obviously, it impacts the localities, and I myself preferred when property tax monies were staying at the local level for the local entities to make decisions, rather than all the property tax, or in most communities, most property taxes going to Sacramento for redistribution. So I think at least we should look and see what the numbers are. I know that the business community doesn't want to hear that. I would prefer to see some other solution, but we've got to look at how are we going to fund some of our basic needs. I do, also believe that we need to look at some other kinds of reforms in government to bring down the cost of government, to make it more in line with what's happening in the private sector and the nonprofit sector. But so I would say, maybe let's at least look at the numbers and see what the impact would be. If it's going to be a draconian impact, I don't think that's fair to business.
One last question. What role do you see the Chamber of Commerce playing with the City Council? How do you think they should work together in your mind?
Well, I know already there's a very strong partnership. The Chamber has a contract from the City of Santa Clara to manage the Convention Center and the Visitors Bureau, and those are two very important entities. That's a very strong source of income potentially for the city as we want to bring more and more tourism to the City of Santa Clara, particularly as the entertainment district is developed. So we want to see the Chamber really very involved in they're going to be a key issue, element in driving forward the whole convention area and the tourism area. I do think that we need to look together. If we don't have our business community, the city doesn't survive. I mean, the business community and the resident, we need that to work together, and we're going to need to work together more effectively, because I know that we're going to have to find a way to accommodate more people living in the City of Santa Clara, because other cities are saying we're not going to build the bedrooms that you need in Santa Clara. So we're going to need the residents, the Chamber, and the city to work together to figure out how we're going to solve these problems. It's not just this, the city. We are the city, and so the city are the residents, the businesses, the people who come to work here, not just what goes on in City Hall.
Take about 3-4 minutes and give us any ideas or thoughts that you'd like to share.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Chamber again for this opportunity to speak to you all. I welcome their use of technology so that we can have more people in the community have access to what the candidates for council are saying. Once again, I want to emphasize that the only reason I'm running for this office is to try to best serve the people of Santa Clara. This is my lifelong home. I've been involved in the community since I was in school. It means a great deal to me. So that's my only motivation. And I believe that I am bringing a wide range of experience. I have a track record. I have brought new ideas wherever I have served. And I would want to bring those new ideas to the City Council. And I want to be open and available to the members of the community and members of the business community. And I've been telling groups that you may not agree with everything I say, I may not believe everything you believe, but I'm a huge believer in the importance of being able to have conversation, to find what our common goals are, and to focus on what we have in common to build something that's much stronger for everyone in the City of Santa Clara. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This interview will come to an end.